Article 1, the legislative branch of the Constitution, Clause 1, prescribed powers. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, making anything but gold and silver coin a legal tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts or grants any title of nobility. So what does that mean exactly? I was looking into this because I saw that there were several states that are beginning to accept gold and silver as cash. One of those is West Virginia. By a unanimous vote, on March 8th, the West Virginia legislature approved a Senate bill, which was 502, originally introduced by Senator Craig Blair of Martinsburg, which called for the exemption of taxation of sales of investment metal bullion and investment coins. On March 27th, the West Virginia Governor, Jim Justice, signed that bill into law, and the law went into effect in 2019. Wyoming, in 2013, had a Wyoming Legal Tender Act, which was defeated in a 5-4 vote. It was defeated again in 2015. The bill sought legal tender status for U.S. minted gold and silver coins. Utah became the first state declaring the U.S. minted gold and silver coins as legal tender. The Utah Legal Tender Act was passed on March 10, 2011, setting the stage for other states to pursue similar legislation. In Arizona, 2 bills declaring legal tender status for gold and silver coins were vetoed despite having passed the state legislature by a large margin. Governor Jan Brewer vetoed the Senate Bill 1439 in 2013, and Governor Doug Ducey vetoed a similar bill, in 2015. Kansas. In 2013, the House Committee on Taxation passed a bill declaring both legal tender and tax-exempt status of U.S. minted coins. Oklahoma. On June 4, 2014, Governor Mary Fallin signed into law Senate Bill 862, recognizing gold and silver U.S. minted coins as legal tender and exempted from state taxation. Texas. In March of 2017, Senator Bob Hall introduced Senate Bill 2097, a bill aimed in establishing a legal tender status for gold and silver, introducing protections from seizure by state authorities. Indiana. In 2013, Senate Bill 99 was introduced to declare U.S. minted gold and silver coins as legal tender and tax exempt. Missouri. Senate Bill 98, an act that calls for the income tax deduction for capital gains from the exchange of gold and silver, is currently up for consideration. Similar acts failed once in 2013 and twice in 2014. Louisiana. House Bill 682 was passed with overwhelming support, making Louisiana the second state to eliminate sales tax for gold and silver currency and bullion. Introduced by Representative Paul Hollis, HB 682 was signed into law by Governor Bobby Jindal. Tennessee. We are waiting to see the outcome of Tennessee's Senate Bill 0350. This bill calls for the sales tax of gold and silver coins. South Carolina. The House of Representatives passed a bill in 2013 declaring gold and silver as legal tender. So I'm reading this off of the Mint State Gold website. And the reason I wanted to look into this is because I live in Texas and I have never seen once or heard of somebody using gold and silver in transactional purposes. What I've actually read into is that the burden of that on these states that have adopted it falls on the individual businesses to say, yes, we will use such means and measures for our transactions. So I guess the question would be, if this is the route that many of us want to go, where we are using government-backed gold and silver, like a gold back or, peace dollars, things like that, how do we get the burden of the private entities to say, yes, this is worth some type of method of our transactions? I don't know how exactly a system of economics that is so tied into technology like the SWIFT banking system and other transactional means that are all online, like digital currency, credit cards, things like that. How do we convince a system that is structured that way to go back to this? Is this something that has to be a grassroots mom and pop situation? Or is this something that Best Buy or a large entity can say, hey, if there's enough people wanting to do this, we're willing to put in the infrastructure? Because that's the other part of it. If I go in and buy a computer with, a gold coin worth $1,800 or whatever it is at that time, how do they then have to fill out tax forms rather than just clicking a button and taxes added to it? With gold being up and down every single day, would we have to have a federal fiduciary responsibility to say this gold back is worth $1 all the time, regardless of what gold and silver does? That is a question that I have a hard time seeing coming to fruition, but it would be really cool to sit there and know that no matter what, this is worth 50 cents. Right? So I don't know the answers to that, but I want to know if any of you have ever used gold and silver in the private sector or public sector for transactional purposes with an actual business, how exactly they go about that. Obviously, we have things like pawn shops and people who do this as a trade, or they pay you or you buy from them. But as an entity where I go and buy a car or where I go and buy a computer or food, have any of you ever done that with gold and silver? And if you have, please let me know in the comments, because I'm super interested about that prospect and would love to know what the process would look like if I need to call a senator or, sit down with businesses to figure out how would this work in scale, because I think that's the underlying question that I don't have an answer to, that many of us can talk about, but I don't think we have answers to because we just aren't in that space. How would you get a large business to sit down and say, yes, we want to do this, and this is how we can do it? Because those questions to me seem very, very vague to answer as far as everything that I've read. So hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that this is something that you can aid me on by giving me some responses, because I think it would be really cool for our system to go back to its roots, where we're using gold and silver in currency and hopefully helping, obviously, the inflation, the transitory, and all these other words that we like to put into it. It's silly. It's inflation, and we can lock that in if we tie it to a tangible asset that, we can't just print. So let me know kind of what you think about all of this, and if things like gold backs and silver coinage are something that we need to move towards, and if so, how do we get businesses to say this is something worth looking into, at least at a state level? I would love to see a model where a state has done this successfully, where you can go and be paid in gold backs or whatever it is, and then turn around and go pay your rent or buy a car or whatever it happens to be with these. So that is something I would love to see. If any of you have experience in that, please put it in the comments below. And if not, ask around. If you're in one of those states that I mentioned, ask around and see if anybody else has, because that would be super, super interesting and valuable for me to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you stay classy and current, as always, with the culture of currency.